All right.
Yes, you're
What's up,
official.
everybody? So, I will dox myself a little bit here. I will tell you that my name is Keith Courage, Xerox Courage. Also, my screen name on Discord here is KMJ. So, K Courage Keith. Any of those I'll respond to. I'm cool with that. But yeah, really today I just want to kind of go into discussion on interoperability and bridges. It's something that I've been focusing pretty heavily on recently. Damien knows that I'm big into it, especially because one of the projects that him and I are in together. It's one of the main focuses of it. So I figured just coming in here and breaking the ice on who I am and giving a presentation and starting to talk about bridges, I feel like it's a good way to start this off. So again, who am I? My name is Keith. I I have my undergraduate in computer science. I started my career off after getting out of high school, went into the military, started operating nuclear reactors, got out. Now I teach people how to operate nuclear reactors. So I go around, I teach engineers, technicians, and so on. So I am a teacher for a living. So this is what I do. I love talking to people. I love educating, and I've definitely expressed interest in just trying to find the best ways that I can contribute to this to the community here with Alpha because I think it's a great thing that's happening here. Being able to share this information, um, all these different experience levels that we have here, it's fantastic. As far as my blockchain experience goes, I started looking into crypto back in 2017, but didn't really take it too seriously. Um, I didn't look into it a whole lot. I was getting out of the military at that point, and I wasn't sure I wasn't sure what its staying power was. I didn't really look into it too much. Uh, I think in 2019 I threw in a little bit of money, and then 2020 hit. I threw in a little bit more, and then I realized, hey, I'm actually making money doing this, so maybe I should start actually learning about what I'm doing here and instead of just blindly throwing my money into stuff what people tell me to throw my money into, right? So now hitting 2020 is whenever I started getting real serious into it and looking more heavily into blockchain technology, different cryptocurrencies, and starting to become really bullish on especially Ethereum blockchains and moving in that direction. And as you can see, I'm also got my Dreamer. I just picked up that sweet Terminator yesterday, which I'm real excited about, by the way. Um, so for the everybody could still hear me, all right, right?
Loud and clear.
Good deal.
Yep.
All right. So starting off, uh, what I've been looking into is future trends because I'm looking at long term type investments. Of course, I'm going to have some short term ones where you can turn a faster profit level. We talk about that all the time here within Alpha. See people in with technical analysis, turning things over after maybe a couple months, trying to take profits after certain levels. I'll admit my technical analysis skills are quite lacking. Looking into there was another member. I don't know if they're still here or not. Lofins, they were in here and started talking about things like time price opportunity analysis, and that's piqued my interest, and I'm starting to look into that a little bit and starting to learn how to chart a little bit. But I'm very far behind in those skills. So what I use going forward is mostly my analytical skills, looking at what the trends of the market is, trying to keep my ear close to the ground, listen to these other guys that have a lot more experience, and make the best judgment calls that I can on my investments based on that. So, with that said, one of the there are five key factors that we're looking at for the future of blockchains that was actually put out by Price Waterhouse Coopers, an accounting firm, which is I think it's the second biggest one. I don't know if Damien, if you know that off the top of your head, but I think it's the second biggest.
Very familiar.
Yep. So they put out a I think this was in 2020. They put this out maybe talking about the five major roles and how you can achieve adoption in cryptocurrencies and those five things. And it's pretty self-explanatory, basic information of consumers and merchants, are they actually are they actually using blockchain technology? Are they actually using cryptocurrencies? Are the investors actually putting money into these technologies? And you need all five of these so that we can actually start to see mainstream adoption. And really, if you think about where we're at today, a lot of these we are seeing that, and I mean, extremely exciting. I mean, I'm a hyper nerd when it comes to this type of stuff, so forgive me if I start getting too excited here, but the technical developers, obviously, we need the developers to be able to create these new technologies, these new platforms, to be able so that we can start to expand. We can learn from our mistakes. We can start expanding and using this blockchain technology to for a variety of things that we use throughout our lives here. The regulators and the financial institutions. This one I think is interesting because we're starting to see more governments and regulations take role in this. Obviously, the China FUD that happens every year, where China bans crypto at least once a year, but even beyond that, with India recently, obviously, and then the U.S. saying that while we have no intention of blocking any type of cryptocurrencies, and you have uh, countries that are taking it on as taking Bitcoin on as a legal tender. So those types of things, I mean, we're seeing this and we're living through it, and it's happening right before our eyes, and it's incredible. And I know that these similar uh, ideas have been portrayed in this chat before, but it really is worth repeating because it's massive. And then obviously the financial institutions, and this is what we do see this, and they recognize it, right? The banks, they feel what's happening with all the shift in the money from into the cryptocurrency space. They're definitely feeling it, and they know what's happening, and they're going to start playing a role in this as well. So all these things are starting to happen, and this mainstream adoption it's going to start coming a lot faster than many people might realize it. In fact, I was working we were down in Florida last month and working with a colleague of mine, and he had asked. We were talking about cryptocurrencies, and he was asking what my thoughts were. And so I think the metaverse is the next big thing. And he said, "Oh, you really think that's going to stick?" I said, "Absolutely." And questioning that is just kind of shows where your mindset is, but it is it's incredible how early we are to this space, but also how rapidly everything's moving forward. But with that said, so that's from PwC, but I've actually kind of developed 6 concepts myself, and these are things that I'm looking at that I think is going to happen going forward. So one is true blockchain interconnectivity is going to be it's going to be a reality. Like we're going to it's going to start happening soon to where we're starting to see, and that's the whole idea of this presentation is interoperability. And again, I'm going to focus more on bridges because it's such a big topic. I could be here for hours talking about this, but blockchain interconnectivity to where we can have this space and what's called where we have right now we have the Internet of Things where everything is connected. Well, we're looking at more into as we look in the future, it's going to be more of the blockchain of things where everything is going to be connected through blockchain technology, and all these different blockchains connecting and working with each other is going to require this idea of interoperability to be able to so that we can actually take advantage of the maybe the scalability of some of these layer 2 technologies, as well as the security of the layer 1 technologies, as well as maybe the centralization of Solana, as well as and being able to put all these things together uh, to create this new world of blockchain technology. So I think that that's going to be a major step, and it has to be. It's a logical step, and it actually ties the rest of these 5 together to where as we start moving into the future, we're going to start seeing governments that are blockchain powered. Everyone's going to start having these digital identities to where we're already seeing that with NFTs, right? Like all my profile pictures on everything are my dreamers. That's how many people are going to start recognizing me, and that's just one aspect of it, right? There's so much more that we can dig into with digital identities. Blockchain standardization, and what I mean by that is all these different blockchain technologies. We have all these developers working and creating these things. Well, eventually we're going to get to a point to where they with this interoperability and everything working together, we will hit a point to where there's a standard process of how to create blockchains, and yeah, there's going to be their own styles associated with them, but I think that there's also going to be a standard process that's going to develop. There's already kind of one there, but it's kind of it will standardize the process. Um, I think it was Damien that actually kind of gave me this idea, was this concept of world trade through blockchain, and probably through something like Ethereum as well. And that's where we're going to see these major transactions between governments, between nation states, between these major large sums of money. That's where we may see these things occur, is through blockchain technologies, and again the Ethereum chain itself. And one thing just to always keep in mind is that a lot of blockchain startups are going to fail. So there's going to be a lot of success in the space, but if you're new here, if you haven't been around for a couple years and seen, I know that I've seen some fail just in the short time that I've been here, and some of you guys, some of the guys that have been here since 2013 or around that time, have seen a lot of startups come and go, and that's going to continue to be the trend. So with that said, so here's the technical definition of interoperability. It's a mouthful. So a composition of distinguishable blockchain systems, each representing a unique distributed data ledger or atomic transaction execution, may span multiple heterogeneous blockchain systems where data recorded in one blockchain are reachable, verifiable, and referable by another, possibly foreign transaction on a semantically compatible manner. Cool. What's that mean? Basically, it's just the ability for blockchains to communicate and transfer information or assets between each other is really what we're looking at. So with that said, that we have to understand that there are multiple different types of blockchains, and I'm going to stay pretty high level here, but just talking about this idea of, well, different types of blockchains maybe being public or private. I personally, I'm not invested in any type of private network. I don't know if anybody is, but it is something it's definitely going to be a role in the space to where a public network is a permissionless network. That's going to be something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, where you don't require any type of authentication to be a part of the blockchain itself. Where a permission network is, everybody on the network is known. You have to have permission to be on it, and everybody's held accountable in accordance with the government's model that's set up on that private network. And those are, again, set up in two completely different ways. They are very, we talked through that word out before in the long definition of interoperability, that they are heterogeneous. They're completely different types of blockchain technologies. So we talk about interoperability between those. That poses its own challenge, as well as with EVM and non-EVM networks. So Ethereum virtual machines, things like obviously Ethereum or going into Polygon or Phantom, all those are EVM type networks, whereas something like Solana is a non-EVM network. So having communication between those, again, poses its own set of challenges. And just kind of showing an illustration of a public and a private network. Public obviously being Bitcoin, and private being that Hyperledger fabric, and just showing the consensus method being pretty different between the two of these. To where, and I'll put this whole presentation, and I'll let you guys save it if you want to go back and take a look at it. And I got notes in here that you can look at as well. So with that said, we have cross communication protocol, CCCP, and cross blockchain communication protocol. And when you're first looking at these definitions, it's kind of a little bit confusing because they almost sound identical, right? CCCP defines a process of blockchains that interact and synchronize cross-chain transactions, whereas CBCP is a pair of blockchains that interact to synchronize cross-blockchain transactions correctly. So this is where we talk about homogeneous blockchains versus heterogeneous blockchains. So something that's going to be homogeneous blockchains, maybe with Ethereum and Polygon, we can communicate between those two using a cross-chain communication protocol. Whereas cross-blockchain communication protocol is going to be something, again, maybe Ethereum to Solana, where it's a little they're not same. They're heterogeneous blockchains and requires that the blockchains actually be adapted somehow. And that's where the importance comes in as well, right? Because with CCCP type processes, we don't have to. It's a lot easier to implement these changes, which is why if you look at some of the bridges that are out there right now, many of them just are EVM compatible. For example, you don't see many that have non-EVM capabilities because it's a little bit more difficult because again it requires some type of adaptation between the two protocols. Now, with all of that brought together, that sets up the groundwork for these three different types of interoperability. We have interoperability between blockchains, so that's cross-blockchain compatibility protocol, CCCP, so maybe dApps using the same blockchain or similar blockchains. And we also have interoperability blockchains with other technologies. And that's going to be something maybe like Chainlink, right? That's looking at bringing in the analog world into the blockchain space. So with these three ideas together, we're laying the groundwork, having this CBCP, CCCP, and integration with enterprise systems is where we can actually start to look and see that internet of blockchains that I had talked about before. So being able to combine all these together, and we can see how we can start to form this entire world to where we're creating an entire new infrastructure is being laid out again right before our eyes, and it's done generally through these three methods here with this interoperability. And right, and why is it important, right? Why is interoperability even important? Why do we care about it? Because just some things that we can do right now with some of the interoperability protocols that we have provides productivity and utility with existing assets. So some examples that we have here. So maybe we can have some of those assets do other things like being able to send DAI to Terra to buy an asset on Mirror and earn yield on Anchor. So we can move all of our assets around and do different things with them. Product capabilities for existing protocols. So maybe cross-chain share order books for NFTs on Ethereum and Flow for the Rarible protocol, and then unlocking any new features and use cases for users and developers. So allowing them to pay for storage maybe on Arweave by using Bitcoin, for example. So and again, these are just quick examples. Your imagination's the limit. There's so much that can be done with this. And I just brought up a list of some interoperability projects that are happening right now. And this is by no means an all-inclusive list. One of the things that I don't know if anybody's ever used. I don't have an account on it with CryptoSlate. I don't know if anybody does, but just a way to be able to kind of organize projects by what they actually offer. So the different DeFi projects, NFT projects, interoperability projects. You have to pay for a subscription to get a full list of everything. Again, I don't have one, but it is something that's available to help you kind of organize if you're looking at investing in certain areas of the market. This could be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that you use?
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, especially because CoinMarketCap isn't exhaustive in the way that it presents everything. It's a little more high level, so kind of being able to dig deeper on that technical level is pretty useful. So you know that you're kind of hedging all your bets and covering all your bases.
Absolutely, for sure, man. And again, like I said, we're just talking about one aspect of the market here. I think it's a massive part of the market that might not be getting as much. Obviously, the metaverse is taking up the air in the room right now, to where everybody's looking at metaverse projects and what's the new big metaverse thing that's coming out, and looking at Sand and Polka City and all these other new crypto gaming and so on and so forth that's moving forward right now. definitely don't sleep on some of these other projects. And again, I've talked about Polkadot before. It's going to be massive. I'm Chainlink. I think is. I started looking more into it. I think Damien's the one that got me looking more into it, and I'm pretty sold on it. I think it's going to be massive going forward. Seller Network is one that Damien's probably smiling right now because he knows that I'm pretty bullish on Seller Network as well, and we can talk a bit about that as well. So now, with all that laid out, why let's actually get into bridges themselves, because that's what we're starting with. Interoperability can cover a wide range of things. Again, some of these don't even have any bridges or anything with them, right? Some of them do. Interoperability is not just bridging, but that is the focus that we're going to go into. And so a bridge is just a system that transfers information between two or more blockchains, very similar to that interoperability simple definition that I gave before. And so that information could be assets, contract calls, proofs, whatever. And most bridges have 4 design criteria with them, to where they have monitoring, to where an actor or a validator, somebody on the network, monitors the state of the source chain. You have message passing and relaying on the bridge itself. So after somebody picks up the event and they need to transfer the information, they have to transfer it from the source chain to that new destination chain, because that's the whole idea of bridging, is going from one chain to another. You have a consensus mechanism, which all these blockchains, we talk about all these different types of consensus mechanisms available on them. So in some models, you may have to have some type of consensus between the actors monitoring the source chain in order to relay that information to that new destination chain that you're looking to move your assets to. And last is the actual signing of the relay itself, to where actors, you have that cryptographically signed transfer, to where either individually are placed in the threshold signature scheme, and information is actually sent to that destination chain after the sign's been complete. So, let me just stop right here. So, things that we've talked about. We've talked about interoperability, what interoperability is, why I think it's a big deal, and starting to generally talk about bridges, which, to be honest, that was a lot of information. So let's just slow down there. Are there any questions up to anything that I've talked about up to this point?
No, and I do not mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to let anybody that might be trying to help me know that I found them, so don't want anybody to waste any time. So
you found your NFTs?
Yeah.
Good, man. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good, man.
Well, after this talk, can you please tell us where you found them? Because now I'm super interested.
Absolutely. Well, that's where I'm headed next.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I'm laying some groundwork, talking about what bridges are, what interoperability is, and then we're going to talk about different types. Some of the ones that I'm looking at, and actually show you some bridges. And
no, I apologize. I meant, where did he find his NFTs?
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I misheard you.
Yeah, no, do your thing. I just need to know where they were. I was like, where's the mystery? You know?
Yeah. Did you have to like reconfigure your wallet or something?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to derail your thing. It was very interesting, by the way. I was enjoying it. And you are a great teacher. I can tell just by the way you explain things. You and Damien have that in common. So, anyway, sorry to derail. So there is a way to see your Engine wallet in OpenSea, but you have to go through the DApp browser and like do it inside the Engine wallet instead of going through OpenSea. So once I did that, I was able to actually see them there. Now I just got to figure out how to put them on my ledger. So they were there the whole time.
Awesome. Glad to hear it, man. Good.
And back to your wonderful talk. Sorry.
Sure. Thanks, man. All right. So that's where we're at right now. We're up to what bridges are. So, roughly speaking, there's 4 different types of bridges. You have asset specific, chain specific, application specific, and generalized. Asset specific chains are pretty easy to implement because you're only focused on one specific asset. So the sole purpose is moving one asset from a chain to another chain, and that's it. it's focused on that single asset. Now, that obviously makes it more limiting, but it's very easy and quick to implement. Then we have chain specific. So if I want to bridge between two different blockchains, and between two different blockchains, usually supports simple operations around locking, unlocking tokens in the source chain, and minting any unwrapped assets on the destination chain. Again, a little bit faster to implement than something maybe like an application specific. But the problem is that every time I want to implement a new chain specific bridge, I have to create a whole new smart contract, and it is more labor intensive to be able to expand out to different chains as well. Application specific provides so I can have multiple blockchains available, but the limitation with that is that it's only for use within that specific application that I'm creating. So something like this would be like Thorchain would be an application specific bridge. And then a generalized bridge specifically designed for transferring information across multiple blockchains. And we'll take a look here at some of these different ones, which I got a list together for asset specific, chain specific, application, and generalized. So some of the ones that we see that get a lot of attention, I would say recently that I've seen, somebody had talked about, I think it's Umbria, which is pretty new, so it's actually not on this list. This list was compiled in September. I don't think Umbria came out until last month. But,
yeah, sorry, I invited Aaron. He's one of the devs for Umbria, so whenever you get to that point, he's around. He'd love to talk to you guys.
Is he in here right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, no, I'd love to hear from him, especially if I'm saying something real stupid. He'd probably be able to correct me on it. So that's good stuff.
I know, it's not good. I'm enjoying listening, so carry on. If you've got any questions,
Thanks,
I'm happy to jump in.
I'm actually not super familiar with Umbria. The only thing that I know about it, I know that it's on Polygon specifically. But yeah, well, I'll ask some questions here. I'm actually kind of a little bit curious about Umbria as well as we go forward. But
Yeah, I'm happy to just explain a little bit if you want. It's basically we just let people move assets between Ethereum and Polygon at the moment. We're going to be adding BSC very soon. We're not sort of validator driven. We do everything off chain to keep the prices down on Ethereum, and that's kind of why we're so cheap. But yeah,
that's right.
I'll let you carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good, man. I know some of the other ones that get a lot of attention right now. I know AnySwap gets quite a bit of attention. Again, the one that I'm have a lot of skin in the game on is Seller Network and Seabridge. I think that they're doing a really good job. We all know about Poly Network and what happened with that earlier this year and the hack that happened on there. So that's the other thing with all these bridges, right? Is that it's very there has to be a heavy focus on security, because moving these assets across different chains, again, depending on the type of security consensus, the security protocols that we're using for the chains, for the bridges themselves, can open them up to vulnerabilities to where people can lose their funds, and that's obviously that's not what we're trying to do, especially with these financial systems, right? And then and the other one is the Polygon bridge. I know it's gotten some attention recently as well. So that's the main overarching designs that's broken down into asset, chain, application, and generalized. But within that can actually be broken down into the actual designs themselves. I'm sorry. So we have types, and then we have designs. It's similar wording, a little bit different in functionality, so and what's actually happening behind the scenes here. So the different designs associated with them can be are broken down into three different types: external validators and federations, light clients and relays, and liquidity networks. And each one's come with their own benefits and downfalls depending on what we're using. So external validators and federations, they use a lock and minting concept to where you have a from the source chain is locked into the word that I grabbed here was mailbox. It's monitored into a mailbox address, and then after the consensus and the signing, the same amount is minted on the destination chain. So it gets locked on one chain and then minted on the destination chain. Like clients and relays, so you have actors that monitor events on the source chain and generate cryptographic proofs about the past events and recording on that chain. And then liquidity networks, which is kind of like a peer-to-peer network, to where you basically have people running nodes with pools of money in them, pools of liquidity in them, that holds an inventory of those assets, and those can actually be moved around. So you can see that there aren't many bridges right now that are going with the liquidity network, mostly because it takes time to get those up and running. It's a lot easier easier relatively at least, to set up an external validator in a federation, because it's more, I don't want to say it's easier to set that up because it's, I don't want to say centralized, but it is more centralized than a liquidity network is. But you're then sacrificing on speed and also on the capital efficiency that you have on that network. Like clients and relays, kind of a middle of the road type aspect. And we can see how these play out, right? Liquidity networks offer a higher level of security and speed and pretty good capital efficiency when you compare it to something like an external validator and federation. They have high statefulness and high connectivity, but not as great as capital efficiency. Their speed's lacking, and the security is where you start to see some issues with external validators and federations, because at any point those validators could turn on the entire network, and that's when you can start seeing. I think it was a poly network that ran into that issue. I think they ran here. Poly network, yeah. That was the issue that they ran into. So again, you're sacrificing on security for being able to develop it faster, have higher statefulness and connectivity, but again, you're sacrificing on capital efficiency and security. And as we look into security as well, that's the last kind of portion of this, to where when we're looking at bridges, what type of security mechanism do they implement? How are they actually securing these assets that are moving from one chain to another? So do you have a trustless mechanism to where you're actually taking on that underlying, like we talked about Umbria, I think, did you say that does sit on top of Polygon? It uses the Polygon's security, right? That is a trustless bridge, correct?
It's not a trustless bridge, no. So we actually, basically, because there's no smart contracts involved, users, we sort of optimize for speed and cost.
Okay,
So we use a sort of the liquidity pooling method, as you were describing it.
that's right.
So people provide us with liquidity on sort of some people do it on the Polygon network, some do it on the Ethereum network, and then whenever someone does a bridge, they get a cut. Kind of like the, I guess when depending on how many tokens you provided, that sort of gives you a percentage of the cut that goes through. So yeah.
So is it like one of the other three then, insured, bonded, or trusted? Do you use any of those mechanisms?
So when it comes to the terminology and stuff, I'm still fairly new to the project. So we don't have. It's a pretty simple way we have it set up. So we just track how much liquidity we've got on either side, and then what happens is, like, when we need to move, when we're lacking liquidity on one side, we will use Polygon's bridge to actually move assets. Or depending, we might use Binance or something if we can deposit to Binance and withdraw on the other network.
Interesting.
So we sort of take all of these, what would be expensive if people wanted to do it individually. If they wanted to bridge using a validator driven one, it would be expensive. So they say they wanted to move like $30 in USDT or something, it just wouldn't be viable using Polygon's method.
Right.
But if they want to sort of send it to ours, we sort of like roll up all these transactions, kind of like just by moving the liquidity using another bridge. Does that make sense?
Okay. So
Sorry, I'm terrible
no,
at explaining these things.
no, that's okay. So nobody, you don't have, no, none of the parties put up any collateral or anything.
No. So the only parties that put up the collateral are so the people provide liquidity, and then they get rewarded based on the fee that we take, which is at the moment I think it's 0.6% of any transaction that goes across.
Okay, so the
So
problem,
say you would move one Ethereum, you would move like 0.006 or whatever it is would be taken as a fee, and then that would be added to the staking balance of sort of everyone who's giving liquidity.
and anybody can set up a node.
There are no nodes. So it's just when I say there are no nodes, obviously, so it's just us that's running this liquidity address, and but people can provide us with liquidity. So we are a very kind of centralized bridge.
Gotcha.
We
Okay.
don't do much stuff in terms of smart contracts and things. So that might change in the future, but
Yeah,
it's
so
kind
it's
of
not, so it's a trusted network that uses a liquidity pool.
yeah. So we kind of optimize. If people are not interacting with a contract address, it's a lot cheaper on the Ethereum network. So
Yeah.
that's the problem we're trying to solve.
Interesting. Okay. Good deal. Thank you. I appreciate that. So with
Yeah,
that
no
little
problem.
sidebar, kind of what we're going into is obviously going over the different aspects of bridges and the security measures with bridges. Again, a trustless bridge, it's something that's going to be built and using the underlying blockchain's security. So something that is built on the Ethereum blockchain would use the Ethereum blockchain security as its security mechanisms. Those are generally going to have some type of roll-up technology. Is whenever we talk about those. Insured bridges. So actors can steal users' funds, but it's unprofitable because they're going to have to post collateral. They get slashed for their misbehavior, and their funds are lost. And if the user's funds are lost, they get reimbursed through the slash collateral. So the people that are so if I want to move my funds from one location to another and I put it on there and an actor's malicious and I'm on an insured network, the malicious actor will get his funds slashed and I'll get his funds back as reimbursement effectively. And then on a bonded network, it's similar, except that users do not recover their funds in the case of misbehavior because that collateral is likely going to be burned in the event that you have a malicious actor. And then a trusted network is similar to what we were talking about with Umbria, where you don't post any collateral, users don't recover any funds, and you're relying on the reputation of the actual bridge operator itself. In the case like you said, they're pretty centralized, so something like Umbria. AnySwap is a trusted network as well. Something like that is they'll have a work over a trusted network. So we can see some of these here. Trustless networks, and some of the ones that were pretty similar that we saw pretty much always fall in the same category. Equality, Op, Connext, Seller, AnySwap, Avalanche pretty much always fell in the same group. I think Thorchain maybe, and another one fell in similar groups a lot. So again, you can see where some of these they are using similar concepts to create their bridging their bridges. And obviously the question is well, okay, which one's the best? That's what we're here for. We're talking about investment strategies and where are we going to look forward in the future? What do we see happening in the future with these different bridges? And well, one, there's a couple of issues. One, there's actually open issues associated with bridges right now, to where we have how do we actually do like NFT transfers, for example, on a bridge? Like I can't just move something. It doesn't. It kind of defeats the purpose of a non-fungible token if I'm moving it from one asset and minting it onto another chain. So I can't do the lock and mint method because that doesn't make much sense, right? So how do we, is that the road that we want to go down? How do we actually get around that finality and roadblocks? So if bridges, so if the chains that you're bridging between change, maybe in the middle of somebody even trying to bridge, what happens to that user's funds? What happens in that type of situation? And then stress testing, because bridges aren't getting a massive amount of, I mean, they're getting some good transaction volume, but we're not seeing, again, mass adoption type transaction volume on these networks. So what happens when we start getting to that level? I mean, do we have, what happens if nodes start drying up and they lose liquidity and there's not enough liquidity to bridge and people can't use them anymore? So how do we start, how do we start being able to account for those types of challenges that could be posed in the future here? And again, talk. So how do I choose a bridge, right? What are some things looking forward in the future of bridges themselves? Now, I'll kind of admit this is probably pretty short-sighted looking at it this way. My personal opinion on bridges is that we're probably going to get to a situation to where we might not even need bridges, right? One of the things, another reason, this is one of the reasons that I'm bullish on Seller Network, is what they're looking at doing is basically creating software developer kits to where developers can create multi-chain native applications and NFTs. And that whole, back at the beginning when we talked about this idea of a blockchain of things to where everything is connected, the internet of blockchains, everything's connected in a single um, and communicating with each other seamlessly. That's how I see that vision occurring, not by somebody going to a UI and happen to move their assets and waiting a couple minutes. No, it's my NFT that gets minted because the developer was able to use the software developer kit to say, well, yeah, this is accessible on any chain because, well, we were able to develop it that way, not because I had to push it through some other type of third-party application. So that's my personal opinion. But in the short term, decreasing. So for we talked about the light client and relays, and the header verification on those smart contracts is pretty expensive. So decreasing the costs of the header verification, it's something that they're going to have to do for the light clients and relay type bridges. Moving from trusted to bonded models, and then from bonded to insured models. The reason we talked about for moving to insured models is because people actually get their money back, right? Scaling liquidity for liquidity networks. So liquidity networks are great because they're fast. It's extremely, I mean, you can have transfers between chains in minutes, where like you look at the Arbitrum bridge where you get locked up for 7 days, or the Polygon bridge where you can get locked up for hours if you're trying to move assets from one chain to another sometimes. Well, liquidity networks, that doesn't happen because it's effectively instantaneous to where it's just a couple of minutes to where you're bridging between these networks. And then actual bridge aggregation, and this is more along the lines what I was talking about in the long-term future, to where all of these bridges are kind of consolidated into one location to where you can go to any chain you want at any time because everything's accessible from the same location. Not quite the whole software developer kit, but that's definitely a direction that we could be seeing this go. So with that said, what I see happening in the future is, like I said, we're going to see all of these different blockchain technologies start to come together. And if I'm bullish with something like Seller Network for that software developer kit, and that's just one aspect of it, right? There's so much more that's coming around. Coming out daily. And so if you think about it, like if for the multiverse, or I'm sorry, for the metaverse, if we have something that I can create a new application to where I can access Solana, and then I can go into Sandbox, and then I can go into back to the Ethereum main chain all at any time that I want. That is a feature that we should be starting to get really excited about, because that's the direction we're going, and I think it's going to happen.
So that future that you mentioned there, that's what Seller's working on?
Correct. They're working on being able to have developers of dApps have multi-chain native applications. That's correct.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yes, it is. It's very insane. It blows my mind. And again, that's one aspect of them. But again, that's I don't want to discount again, like something like Thorchain. I think is something that's has a fantastic concept behind it. Polygon is not going anywhere. I think Polygon is going to be massive. Chainlink is a fantastic project. So not trying to focus in on one thing. That's just one aspect. When we're talking about bridges, I don't think that there's much comparison right now as we look forward with something like Seabridge and moving forward into something like that. That's my personal opinion. Obviously, not financial advice. Do your own research, but it's what I'm here for, right? To kind of show you what my research is, where my head's at, and obviously what you guys think. So with that said, I got some resources here that I used. I'll post those into the channel as well. I'll give you guys all my resources in my PowerPoint. So if you want to go through it and double check me and see if I'm stupid on something, by all means. But with that said,
Well, what a
any questions?
fantastic presentation. Really appreciate you taking the time, man. Sheesh.
Yeah.
Definitely exhaustive.
Amazing.
Exhaustive, not only in all of the different implementations of this technology, but really framing the idea for everyone, emphasizing how cross-chain interoperability really is important. Definitely was a fresh of breath air, and I think definitely harkened back to some of our conversations, and you know my strong opinions on a lot of this stuff here. So definitely a lot of fun. I know a lot of this we've studied together and had good conversations on.
Yeah,
But
it's so exciting. It's super exciting. It's hard to not get excited about, right?
yep, exactly. You know exactly. I mean, both you and I nerd out on this kind of stuff, and I think it can't be emphasized just how important it is, because nowadays, like people people don't know how cars work, yet they're able to drive them, and
Yes.
that's pretty much where we need to get when it comes to interfacing with any of these chains, right? Whether you're using Solana or Polkadot or Ethereum, it doesn't matter. You should just be able to point and click and move your money around and have fun.
Exactly.
Whether even in like every different metaverse, the fact that it takes any sort of thinking whatsoever is really, I think, one of the biggest things that's preventing mass adoption. But as soon as that's solved, it's going to become a pretty quick adoption. So yeah, like I said, very exhaustive, super cool, it's very fun. And if anyone has any questions, please by all means go ahead. Or if you have any thoughts, or maybe have some thoughts on where you think things will go instead of in the direction of Seabridge or Cellular Network, that'd be really interesting to hear. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and let anyone else who has any questions take it away.
For sure.
Just sorry, just to extend on what you were saying, that I agree entirely with the so with people not knowing what chain, sort of like not knowing how to drive a car, knowing how to drive a car but not knowing how it works. That seems to be exactly the direction where we're going now. So we've noticed, like on Umbria, like a very large percentage of people that are using it are people that are trying to move assets over from the Ethereum network to Polygon. They are like Zedrun users and OpenSea users.
Yep.
So they see like wrapped Ethereum. They just think of it as another asset. They don't even know that there is another like blockchain like on Polygon. They just want to convert their Ethereum into wrapped Ethereum.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to sort of like educate users a little bit, but on the other hand, we also kind of have to maybe sort of like do a little bit of hand waving and just sort of like help them out and stuff. So I think education is like a big part at the moment, especially with the way we've got these tools and stuff like MetaMask, which make it really difficult to kind of know where your assets are, and kind of, unless you really understand how it works under the hood.
Yeah, man, that's key, right? And Damien used, like you said, it's the greatest analogy of the car, right? I should be able to one day be able to hand my phone to my grandma and say, "Hey, you can purchase this NFT right now." She should be able to do it easily. Like that's the direction that we need to get to where that's mass adoption, right? That anybody can use it. That's why, right? That's why iPhones got so big, because they're so easy to use. And then that's why Amazon got so big, because you can click and you could buy something and have it delivered to your house the next day, and it's super easy to use. That's how things get adopted on a mass scale, and that's why. And I think it's the mindset. It's definitely not a secret in the blockchain community. That's a lot of these developers recognize that, but it's a massive undertaking. We're laying out a whole new infrastructure. We're laying out a whole new world here. Literally, we're talking about I mean, the metaverse it blows my mind. We're talking you can live your life in the metaverse. We're talking about to where we're going to get to the point to where people are going to be able to earn a living by playing a game in the metaverse. Not because you can stream it and you have a good personality, but because you just play the game and you're good at it and you can earn a living that way. And that's just one aspect, right? And that's so limited. There's so much possibilities that are available right now. And again, we're just
Yeah. So there are a lot of projects. We're also finding like one of our biggest sort of things we're trying to help people do at the moment is developers and things. So we're working to try and help developers of like NFT projects and things to move their assets. Well, let their users move their assets, because one of the biggest issues with adoption of Polygon NFTs is people don't understand the technology. So I've just posted a little video here, just showing a little. So this is a project I've been working on for the last couple of months. It's basically like a widget that developers and NFT projects and things will be able to use. So they will be able to drop this on their site, configure it, and let people sort of move assets like really easily. Like basically, I've fought the Sushi Swap UI because I really like how it works.
Yep.
It's really simple and everything. And hopefully, this will sort of like help a lot of projects that otherwise users might find it too confusing to get their assets onto the chain where they want to mint. So once we sort of like kind of build a couple more bridges, so we've got BSC coming out next week as well, I think.
Right.
If everything's on, and then we're planning on adding Solana as well. So hopefully, this might in the future grow quite big.
Very cool, man. You said you have a video for it? Did you post it?
Yeah, so I've just dropped that on the Quick Chat channel. It's just a little introduction.
Gotcha. Good deal, man. Thanks, Aaron.
But like UI is such a big like part of like you kind of have to like the UI has to explain to the users how it works, kind of, but not directly, because people aren't going to read the text a lot of the time. You just have to kind of sort of make it intuitive.
Words mean things, but a lot of people don't read them. It's amazing.
And I think, yeah, and I think something that we should definitely use as a model, just going with that driving analogy again, is like, people, red means stop, yellow means slow down, and green means go, right? And so with that like speed of recognition, we should be modeling everything after that, essentially. That way nobody has to really think about a thing, which is why, again, like you and I are both pretty bullish on Stellar Network, because I think it's having to do chain-to-chain specific implementations for transfers, I think is a bit just overall going to have like its limitations. And so there instead needs to be like a sort of a abstraction layer or like Unicode for assets that can basically just be deployed on one layer, which would be like that abstraction level. So that you can kind of move things from like Flow over to Ethereum and ultimately even instantiate it in somewhere like Decentraland or the Sandbox, or what have you. Yeah, no, so that was definitely exhaustive, I would say. Very much appreciate you taking the time to put all that together. Really great. Are there any other questions or comments that anyone wanted to voice while we still have KMJ here?
Is there another competitor that's doing the same as Stellar Network?
No, Stellar Network's pretty unique in what they're doing, because they're actually developing it's a middleware technology. It's not actually it's not like a side chain or anything like that. They're developing layer 2 scaling middleware technology, and they develop their own roll-up technology. It's based off of optimistic roll-ups, but they have their own hybrid roll-up technology that they're using, and they've created their own products using their Stellar Network technology. And those products are Seabridge, Layer 2 Finance, and their State Guardian network. So basically what they're saying is like, hey, here's our core product, and here's the power that it has behind it, and look at the things that we can create with it. So you're going to start seeing maybe other developers that are going to start adopting Stellar Network technology to create their own applications. Maybe that Seabridge software developer kit for maybe a DEX that can be accessed from any chain. Like imagine that, like a decentralized exchange, a Uniswap that can be accessed from anywhere. You don't have to be on just one specific chain. Any of the metaverse games that can be that can be accessed from anywhere. An NFT that can be accessed from anywhere. That's the direction we're going. Then layer 2 finance, something like a DeFi protocol aggregator. That's not it's not giving it justice, but that's the idea behind it. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Seabridge itself absolutely has competitors. Yeah, there's definitely other bridges out there, and that was with that presentation here. You can some of the main ones I would say that are the closest to its style are the Connext hop and the quality, but Connext and hop specifically are pretty close to the same idea of what the Seabridge is putting together.
Yeah, and then too, just to speak a little bit on Connext, Hop, and Seller, because I've done some pretty in-depth research in comparing them. Connext is essentially only working toward providing developers a way to, on the back end, move assets around, and so they're kind of more of a B2B play. Whereas Hop is targeting specifically users who want to move their assets from one chain to another, but they aren't necessarily working on the back end development side of things. And they are doing things chain to chain. They are minting synthetic versions of assets on their own chain. And so, in my opinion, there's just a little too much complexity there in order for it to be as fast as something, say, like Settler Networks design. And so, just having that real hybrid direct model that Seller is building, I think, is a lot more effective and robust in the long run. And something to really take into account when assessing when assessing all of these different technologies, that, like, everyone, if you go based on hype, that you might have some short-term gains, but you're not necessarily going to be investing into what is ultimately going to win. So, for example, Polygon has definitely been the most popular quote unquote layer 2 of late, because what they did was sacrifice they sacrificed decentralization for the sake of scalability, which really has only been prioritized because everyone wants low fees. And so, people will talk so much, they criticize Ethereum so much because of the cost of fees. But at the end of the day, Ethereum is the most secure and the most decentralized, which, is kind of the whole point of this crypto thing. And so to sacrifice that decentralization in favor of scalability in the short term is really short-sighted, and kind of antithetical to what crypto is all about. And so short-term wins are basically going to be these chains that and bridges that focus on speed, but ultimately the guys who are laying the groundwork for what is actually true, or what rings true for cryptocurrency, in my opinion, is going to win on a 5 to 10 year horizon. And so, definitely you have some fun trading in and out of these low fee chains, but things like, in my opinion, Avalanche or Polygon or what have you, they're maybe just going to be nice little fun things to look at in a museum 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and everything was going to move its way back over to Ethereum and its layer 2 solutions. But I do think like things like Polkadot, which actually have a unique proposition, are going to stand the test of time. Because each parachain itself is its own chain, but it's all one. And they're actually even different blockchains. So, definitely just a completely different, unique design there. But yeah, so very cool stuff. Pretty in depth there too. So don't worry if a lot of this is, kind of overwhelmingly new. But everything's been recorded. We're going to go ahead and post this. And again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free.
Yeah, I got one thing to say. First of all, thank you guys. I love coming to this space, and I'm not a tech guy, so I'm learning so much every time I listen to you guys. These presentations are awesome. And then I am in no way officiated or associated with Umbria, but Aaron has been a friend for a while, and I've been watching him over the last couple of months developing these things that he's doing for it with the widgets. It is so easy now for the normal user with this Matic widget, with this Umbria widget that he used. I've been using it to actually accept those ridiculous WETH offers on OpenSea, because now it costs me like $10 to transfer it over to ETH. So for that, I can take those, offers and still accept them and not lose 3/4 of the offer.
Yeah. I'll say that. Yeah, Umbria. It's caught my attention of late, recently as well. And I've been trying to look a little bit into it. I haven't had time, a whole lot of time recently, but I'm glad that Aaron's in here and being able to provide a little bit more insight into it. I think that's cool. And here's the other thing, right? I don't think this is it's not a winner take all game. There's going to be multiple solutions to these problems, and people are going to use the solutions that fit their current needs, right? If I want higher security and I want to move a massive amount of money, I'm going to choose something like Celo Network and a liquidity network because it's more secure, and I don't have to, and I know that the liquidity is available. If I'm going to be moving quick, smaller amounts of assets around, and I want to do it for low fees, and I'm not as worried about security, and I can do the speed, I'll probably use something like maybe like Umbria or maybe AnySwap or something along those lines, because it just makes more. It might make more sense in that case. So it just depends, and we're gonna see. We're gonna see other players come out, and there's gonna be multiple. And there's gonna be obviously there's gonna be one. There's probably gonna be a main winner, but there's gonna be other people that are close seconds, right? So.
Yeah, also being a
what you were
normal.
saying. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, also being a normal guy in this space, I only think about those little bits of money. I don't even think about large transfers of money. So
Right.
the security aspect didn't even come into my mind.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a couple of $100.
Sure, man. No, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people are. Yeah.
At the end of the day, because with our model, we still have to bridge the assets if we're lacking liquidity on, sort of like really actually bridge it. We have to use some sort of validator-driven bridge if we want to move like large amounts of assets. So I see that kind of like a similar, there's space for both.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely space for both, and I don't think that somebody's gonna. There's gonna be some. Again, I said it right there at the beginning of the presentation. I won't discount it because it is true, but there are going to be a lot of blockchain startups that fail. It's the nature of the beast, right? We're going to be in this group 2 years from now. We're going to look back and we're going to say, well, hey, that list. Remember that list that Keith had up about all these different bridges and everything, and these interoperability protocols, and well, all of a sudden, half of these aren't even around anymore, or maybe so they got consolidated. Who knows what the future holds? But we're going to see some drop off. That's just the nature of the beast.
But one thing that we can't say is that we all hope that all of the developers of all of these different applications do make a lot of money, so
Absolutely.
that even when their startup dies, they are A-okay.
That's right. Yeah, no, I'm definitely not trying to shit on anybody for sure. I'm just
like one thing we've been discussing a little bit in terms of like a new model that I'm not sure if it is a new model, but we were thinking sort of like taking a bit of a hybrid approach. So kind of our model that we've got now, but rather than sort of having Ethereum as the main chain where people will bridge through, having our own blockchain in the middle. So for example, you would be able to send your assets to our bridge address, and then kind of like that's essentially burning it, and then you would be able to mint it on our kind of private chain in the middle. And then you would be able to do some transactions on there to decide which network you want it to go to. So, say you wanted to move to, you'd like deposit some Ethereum and then minted it on our chain. Then you could send it to one address in order to send it to the Ethereum network. You could sort of send it, you could burn it, send it to another address, which is essentially burning it to send it to the BSC chain. So, kind of like what we're thinking of doing is something along those lines.
very cool.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so, but would that be that would be in a centralized manner, right?
Yeah. So we would kind of have our own little blockchain, but we would sort of like be running, sort of the validators, and maybe we would fault like Polygon or something to do it.
Got it. Okay. And have you guys spoken of decentralizing that maybe at some point in the future after developing everything and ensuring that it is robust on its own?
It's definitely possible. So the model we do things now, we're planning on sort of trying to make things into a DAO. So we don't actually get any of the profits from people that are moving the assets. We do, but that's just kind of like because we are the people holding Umbria. And when you stake Umbria on our bridge, that's when you get fees basically for people moving all assets. So the idea is that essentially we plan on making a sort of DAO. Kind of the future direction of it, that could go in many directions because obviously if it's community driven, people, the Umbria holders will be able to vote on propositions and things. So.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's very nice. I definitely think that most organizations should be setting themselves up as DAOs. That way, whatever the people want can be done because ultimately that's the market. And so if you don't listen to the market, then you're definitely pushing off a lot of adoption there. So very good to hear. Cool. So are there any other questions or comments or any concerns perhaps, or maybe projects in the space that you'd like to hear anyone's thoughts on? Please feel free to bring them forth so we can go ahead and chat about it while everyone's still here. Alrighty. Okay, I think that was pretty robust. So I would say.
Yo, hello.
Oh,
sorry. I'm sorry.
No worries. Please go ahead.
Any opinions on Paribus? Does anyone know anything about that?
Say it again.
Paribus. I posted it in quick chat. Does anyone know anything about that?
I do not, but I will definitely take a look.
Yeah, I'm trying to get opinions on this, but I haven't really looked that much into it. So I was hoping there's someone here that knows about it. But
well, I like their design, but I see Cardano blockchain here, so I kind of turned my nose up at it a little. But I'll definitely look into it and see what the technology is like. Maybe there's something that could be taken from that. But no, this is cool. Like I said, nice little design here. So they've got some talented people. So yeah.
Yeah, they have a cool website. Yeah.
You guys. So does anyone know of any chains where it's difficult to get their assets to at the moment? So from Ethereum or from Polygon to to Solana to, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to find chains that are difficult for people to get to, so we can sort of make it easier.
Cardano. So not many bridge into that.
Yeah, I would say Cardano and Solana, and especially if you want to not only prioritize ones to which it's difficult to bridge, but also I think critical
that have demand. And
exactly,
I think that
would be Solana. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I don't think we see many Cardano bridges because there's no demand for it, right? Solana bridge, that's a different story.
With BSC, people want to move their assets off it, but they don't want to move it on there. So
I'll tell you the other one that I think is kind of a big deal is because the the Binance bridge is shutting down, or did it shut down yet? I think it shut down next week, or it's already shut down. But I know people were kind of bumming about that because Elgarand, ELDG, I think is the tag for that, right?
I think it's ELGO, the ticker.
Yeah, is no ELDG. What is it? Maybe I'm saying that wrong. It's proof of stake. Elrond, sorry, retarded.
Oh, Elrond, yeah.
Yeah, I know Elrond. That's another one where people want to see that getting bridged. It's not supported by many bridges right now, and it was supported by the Binance bridge, but that's getting shut down. So now that's kind of getting left out in the cold right for at least for a short time until somebody picks it back up. That's definitely an area of opportunity.
Yeah. So what was that one called? Sorry.
Elrond.
Like ELRON?
D. Yep. ELROND. Correct.
Thank you. I will look that one up.
For sure, man.
Yeah. So anything else? Definitely appreciate you bringing up Paribus. So I know I rag on Cardano quite a bit, but we may see some interesting stuff happening in the next few years with Cardano because they do have some interesting technology. I just think that what Cardano is looking to achieve, Ethereum 2.0 already has a lot of it baked in, at least the effects of what Cardano wants. And if the developers aren't there, it doesn't matter if you have the coolest city in the world if everyone is already living in another, and no one's really talking about it. So
That's right.
Definitely taking into account the layer 0 of everything, which is the social layer. In sort of we were talking about investments here, and so you want to be where the party's happening. Which is why I also said, if you want to optimize for short-term profits, which is a totally okay strategy to do, then yeah, follow hype. Focus on scalability right now because that's the biggest thing. That's why Solana has such high demand. But also something to take into account is that Solana itself has actually gone down this year for a few hours because they ran out of resources to process the throughput that was demanded of the network. Whereas that has never happened on Ethereum. Granted, fees were bananas on Ethereum, and it's for that very reason why Ethereum is so robust, wherein if you want your transactions to actually be executed, you just have to pay the money. But that basically creates a really highly fault tolerant system that you just can't have on some of these other low fee networks that are centralized. Because they just ultimately run out of compute resources. But so just wanted to throw that out there. Don't mean to be bearish on anything at all. Short term, a lot of things can have some legs under them. But for me, and sounds definitely like I definitely know Keith and I are all very long term thinking because it's just a lot easier rather than having to kind of watch the charts so much and maintain everything. It's a lot easier to just park your money, sit back and earn some yield and just keep rocking and rolling with that. But everyone has a different approach. I know trading in and out can be a lot of fun too. Don't get me wrong. But just always make sure that you're hedging your bets and always have a bit of like a long-term portfolio stashed away that you just kind of lock up and not think about. That way you can go ahead and then have fun without sweating. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
and what I was talking about today with interoperability and bridges, I think that these are more long-term plays. I will say that. I'll come out and
Mhm.
very blunt about that. That this is not. I'm not looking at. These are not quick hype things. These are long-term infrastructure type plays that are going to grow massively in the future. And I think that I agree. I think that everybody should have some type of like you said, long-term play in their portfolio.
Can you show the plays real quick? I missed them.
I'll put this whole. So this is. I have multiple of these. These are kind of just breaking down
Okay.
different types of bridges and their models and such. I'll post this whole presentation in the
Thank you.
in here for you guys.
Wormhole is really cool, by the way, for anyone who hasn't used it or heard of it quite yet. But that's basically a bridge from Polygon, I believe Binance Smart Chain, and Ethereum over to Solana. So Polygon, I don't think is live yet. But if people want to go from one low-fee chain to Solana, that's definitely going to be the one to use, in my opinion.
Yep, I agree with that.
So I have about a couple of months ago, I tried to use Solana to Ethereum on Wormhole. There was no warnings on the site. When I got over to Ethereum, I couldn't actually cash my token out. So I went onto their Discord, and they said, yeah, well, we have no liquidity on Ethereum. So I don't know if that's still the case, but I asked them multiple times, well, what do I do? I think I tried to bridge over to Sol to Ethereum, and I ended up